Welcome to the Planet wasn't going to be called Welcome to the Planet. It was going to be called Uncommon Ground. We'd always had that because we thought we could release it almost like a companion album, like Second Brightest Star was. But the more we worked on the songs, the album that became Welcome to the Planet, we realised that actually there's a really strong set of songs. These aren't just kind of things that are kind of, if you like, companion pieces to something else. These are strong in their own right. So that's what we decided to do. We could have released it as a double album. We thought that it's better to do it as two single ones, because then you've got the story of that's the story arc of Common Ground, which remains intact, but you've also then got a separate album in its own right.
Actually, I think that's quite an interesting question because it has. I think there's quite low expectations on recording artists in this day and age. In the 60s and 70s, bands were regularly doing, 2 albums a year, or certainly an album each year, and they were doing a lot of touring as well. And obviously we've had the enforced luxury of time off the road, so we've had lots of time to do some songwriting. But when I think back, I think of Revolver and Rubber Soul, 6 months apart, Trick of the Tail, Wind and Wuthering, that sort of thing. It's all the bands in the 60s and 70s were working really, really hard, and I think in the 80s and 90s and beyond, bands got out of the habit of writing so much music, and I think, as I say, the expectations became slightly reduced. So for me, it's an entirely natural, normal thing. There's, it's a band full of songwriters. We've got songs that we want to hear. We want people to hear them. So yeah, we just crack on and we move forward.
It was a question of striking while the iron was hot, in the sense that we'd suddenly acquired new band members, and that brought in new energy, new ideas, and we wanted to get that out, because we thought the ideas were good, and it's another side of Big Big Train. It's a different side to Big Big Train. The difference between, or contrast between the two albums are, I would say that Common Ground had the theme of we have more in common with each other than we have our differences, and that was something that came from the pandemic, where you were looking at news reports and you could see that despite all the chaos and the upheaval and the awfulness that was going on in the world, the human spirit kind of shone through. So that was really the overarching theme of Common Ground. Whereas Welcome to the Planet was material that kind of really didn't fit into that story arc, and that's really the main difference. There were songs that it could have been like we did Second Brightest Star, following on the heels of Grimspan as a companion piece, but Welcome to the Planet is an album in its own right, because we felt the songs were good, and it was a cohesive body of work.
No, I think they are quite different. I mean, there are no epics on. Most of the albums in recent years we've done at least one track that's sort of 10 minutes plus. There's none of that on the new album, but I think there's a lot of musical complexity on there still. It's just sort of amongst shorter instrumental pieces rather than sort of longer tracks. I would compare it to maybe an album that Queen might make in the 70s, or perhaps 10cc. It's that sort of maybe slightly more art rock leaning than straightforward prog rock. But we've got lots of, different strings to our bow, so we're quite relaxed about doing, lots of different things. So yeah, I think it's certainly different than Common Ground. I think Common Ground is this is a bit more playful, a bit more quirky. Some serious songs on there, but I think it's just I think it's that quirky side of our music that comes to the fore. For me, every album should be a journey, but you shouldn't necessarily know what the destination is going to be. And I think this will surprise some people. I mean, some people won't like it. I mean, that's part of the course. You pick up people along the way. People disembark. That's life. You just make the music that you want to make, and that's what we do.
We lost three long-standing band members during the early months of the pandemic, and then we were faced with, well, how do we continue? So initially we looked to the four of us. So it was Greg, myself, and Nick DiVigilio, and Ricard Huerblon. And we decided that we were going to build the album Common Ground around the four of us, and then we started to include other members.
I mean, it was a very difficult period for us. As you know, we lost tours, we lost a staggering amount of money on the visas, and you don't get that money back. It's not like the US government will say, you know, okay, chaps, you can save those for next year. It doesn't work like that. It's just lost. So we were in a very difficult place over the summer a couple of years ago, and yeah, I particularly struggled with it because I've been doing this a long time, and I perhaps reached a stage where I thought maybe that's it, you know, with the three band members leaving as well. But you know, the lads rallied round. I called us the Four Musketeers briefly because it was the sort of core lineup. But we also had an eye on the future, and we knew that we needed to bring some musicians in to, you know, so we could play songs in the live arena. And so we sought new band members, and initially I think they were, you know, we found the three people that we wanted to work with, but we weren't sure whether or not it should be a straight come and join the band sort of invite, because that's I mean, being in a band is like being in a marriage without the sex. Well, unless you're in Fleetwood Mac, when you probably get both. But generally speaking, it's a very complex, intimate relationship. You know, you're trusting other people with your kind of art and your soul and all of those things. So I think it's not just a question of saying to people, do you want to join the band? It's a question of them having time to think about whether they want to do that. Us spending time with those individuals just to kind of feel that we're getting to know them better and stuff.
Carly Bryant, keyboard player and singer, she came on board after Rob Aubrey had done some work with her years and years ago, and he just remembered her. So we got in touch with Carly, and Carly sent her, you know, we auditioned her, and we met her and Dave Foster. And he came on board as a result of from our manager Nick Shilton, who'd known Dave for years. And we met them both at Real World last November. They came down and we recorded an acoustic version of Common Ground in the wood room. The violinist took a little bit longer. Common Ground was mainly done with Aidan O'Rourke, who's is in a band called Lau, an alternative folk band, if you like. And so he did the main bulk of the album. But then we needed somebody permanently in the lineup.
I go to a few gigs, and I'd seen Claire with Stackridge, and so I made a note. It wasn't that, I mean, Rachel was in the band at the time, but you just make a note of people that you think, wow, that person's talented. So Claire was at the back of my mind. Dave I saw with the Dave Foster Band in London. And again, I thought, wow, awesome guitar player. A nice stage presence as well. Carly I didn't know. Carly came through Rob Aubrey, our engineer, and Rob's been central to finding many of the band members over the years. And I think he'd worked with Carly, I think it was maybe a decade or so ago. It wasn't recently at all, but she'd stuck in his mind in the same way that, you know, he made that sort of mental note. So we had a photo shoot last week, and it was full of fun and laughter and smiles, and that was really important. It was like almost like a team building exercise, but it wasn't set up in that. It wasn't one of those artificial one that you do if you have an office job and you have to go, you know, I don't know, abseiling or something. It was, we've got a photo shoot, let's get everyone together, let's go and have a bite to eat and all those sort of things. And we just, you know, we had a great time. It was lovely. And you build up that trust and those relationships that you need to have. So I think they bring, the three of them bring a sense of fun, a sense of renewal together. And I think separately they bring their musical talents. You know, they're all extraordinary at what they do. And for me, it's gone from being a very low period to being quite an exciting you know, I'm really excited by what we've got. I think we've got some rocket fuel in the tank.
Bringing on board the new members, they just did bring a lot of energy with them and new ideas. They were wanting to be involved. You know, they'd chosen to come on board at this point in time. Yeah, literally the enthusiasm and the new ideas and, you know, the sort of fresh approach that we had. You know, it really reinvigorated us. You know, and we wanted to, I mean, we want to embrace the new members as well, in the sense that, you know, we don't want them to just come on board and just do what they're told. We want them to bring themselves and elements, you know, their skills to the band, because that's how the band will prevail and how we'll move forward, you know, onto whatever comes next.